Long time no talk. Long time no see. I am on my way to my church. Before I have treatment, I have to run and drop off some papers at my church and pick up some stuff. I always say that this is a channel about a single mom of 3, her journey with terminal cancer. And part of my journey, obviously, is a financial journey. Not being able to work and only getting a fixed income, which seems to be getting less as my kids get older, eat more, and need more, and finances go up. And so, unfortunately, one of the things I do have to do is realize when I actually need help and I need to ask for help. I don't like asking for help. I don't think most people do. I try to exhaust all of my personal issues or whatever I have first before I ask. And one thing I've learned is that it's better to ask and leave it in God's hands. And yes, there's many times where I'm yelling at God, saying, God, it's too late. Why aren't you answering? And there are the times when He really shows through. He, out of the blue will come up with something, and I'll be like, oh my God, how in the world did you do that, God? Talking to God. And then I realize why He does this, because I now have something to praise God and tell people about. And, the closer and closer it is to the end, where I, as a human, see it's the end, and there's no end in sight, or there's no answer. And then all of a sudden, the things work out, and it's only with the help of God that something like this can happen. It's more of a testimony. And I always seem to love to tell my kids first. And then as God sees it fit, I will tell other people. And that's how one way that I use my cancer journey as a testimony to other people. Financially, I've been going to the end of the month, and literally counting pennies to pay for gas, pay for food, pay for whatever. Especially when there's months that my kids are going on trips. There's birthday parties. They have birthdays. My car inspections due. And for me, everything seems to happen in March. So I ended up needing to put my one child in counseling. And I agreed that we finally need family counseling. And so the finances for having my son in counseling, and then now my daughter, and wanting counseling for our family, has made it where I need to ask for help. And also ask my church to see if they can give me advice on where to go for family counseling. So they have a paper that they have to fill out for, I think, to get money from the benevolence fund to assist in the finances when it comes to the counseling. And so you have to fill out all these questions. They ask you your whole financial situation. Why are you in that situation? Do you have any assets that can get you out of it? Do you have a budget? If so, can you put it here? Or can you give it to us? Would you be willing to work with someone financially on a long-term basis? All of these things. And so I just literally knew that I needed a certain amount of money to pay for certain things. And it was hours away I paid half of my cell phone And that's how I communicate, is with my cell phone. Well, and email. But I needed to pay the other half by the end of that night, or my phone would be turned off. And I also was down to barely any gas, and I have to drive myself to treatment. And I also I had $3 or $2 in change, and I was going to use that for toilet paper because we were out, and a jar of spaghetti sauce, so we had dinner for that night. And don't get me wrong, I have other food in my house, but like, you have 3 kids, they don't want to eat half the stuff. I like to make sure they have a protein, a full dinner, not just like macaroni and cheese, Kraft macaroni and cheese, and a whole bunch of sides. But anyway, I was praying to God, and I'm like debating, do I ask this person, do I ask this person, and in my head going on and on, how is that going to pan out? It wouldn't be the best situation. It'd be better if I didn't have to ask them. So I thought I needed $30 to pay for my phone, and then some money for gas, and some money for the food, a little bit of money for food. And I knew that my church was might be able to help me with the food side, and the paying for the counseling. And so I filled out the papers, and I bought it in, and I just dropped it off. They asked me some questions on how I was and what was going on lately. Because this wasn't the first time I used it. I used it like in 2014 and 15, I think, when I was getting diagnosed with the melanoma and didn't have any income. So I dropped it off and I left. And then I went to the dollar store to pick up the toilet paper and spaghetti sauce. And I got a call from the person. She had told me when I was there that the person who oversees it wasn't there. She didn't know if he'd be back later on or that next day. So I didn't expect to get any answers. So I went to the dollar store, went to get my stuff, and decided I would make that phone call to the 2 people to ask for help. And I also had a food pantry from another church, but I thought that was an every other week food pantry, and my son said it wasn't, but I thought it was every other week. So I had that church that night, and I had to drop off paperwork to get permission to use that again. So I ended up going to the dollar store, and I get a call from my church, and it was secretary, and she says, Tammy, I just quickly looked over your budget and your paper, and we, as the church, have some food cards to give you if you would like them. And I was like, even thinking about it, I'm about to cry. I had to literally almost I had to put my stuff down that I was about to buy and step out because I was about to cry. And so I got myself, after I talked to her, I'm like, yes, absolutely. She said, I can give you some of them now, and then you can come back tomorrow. And I said, okay, I'll be right there. And went back in, paid for the rest of the stuff I had, and then went to my church. When I went to my church, of course, I was starting to cry right as soon as I saw her. And I told her what I was just doing, that I scrounged change together to get the toilet paper and spaghetti sauce. And she said, well, I want you to also know that we here in the office got some money together for you also. So now I'm like, oh my goodness, God, you just answered the food part. I don't know how much this money is, but if it's at least $30, you answered the money part for my phone. She also gave me flowers, which was really nice, because she was going away and she got flowers that day. So I go out in the car, and it was $80, which I was like, oh my goodness. And I went to pick up my son from from his dad's house. And then I went to pay my car, and pay my cell phone. And I told my son how that had all worked out. How, you know, I didn't have to ask the other people, how the money ended up being there for my phone, and the food was there, you know, the money for the food, and maybe even some money for gas. And then he's like, Mom, you got these kind of cards. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, he's like, that's not a food card. That is a gift card for that store, which also has a gas station. So right there, God also answered the prayer for money for gas, because I could use that gift card for gas from that store. And then we went to pay my cell phone, and I get there, and here it was, the amount of money was actually more than I thought. It was $70 and not $30. And as you know, they gave me $80, which is, God knew, you know what, if I give you what you asked for, you're not going to have enough. And I didn't know that. And I think that's amazing how God answered the prayer, even to the point where I didn't know it was answered. And if he'd had answered it the way I had asked, I still wouldn't have had enough for my phone.